members during this downtime. I've had, many practices reaching out to me because a lot of them get to work from home. I had an office last week, actually. The office manager, Bonnie, she set up a kind of an online screen share with her and her team, so she could put her team to work during this downtime. The doctor is letting most of the team, the admin team at least, work from home. And so we went through a few of their projects that they could work on, these rainy day projects that we've been putting on the back burner for so long. And now we have an opportunity to kind of work on these rainy day projects. And I've had a lot of doctors also reaching out to me, and they're like, I've got some time on my hands. Teach me how to clean up my ledgers, or teach me how to do something in my software so I can at least stay busy. So I've actually had so many people reaching out to me just wondering, what can I do in my software that I usually don't have time for? And so what a great opportunity that you gave me, Kim, to teach your Dentrix users that are ADOM members some projects that they could work on if they do have the opportunity to use a team viewer or log me in, they're working from home. What kinds of things can we do in our software to keep ourselves busy, work on some of these rainy day projects. So I came up with 5 that I think are very productive. These are things that, it seems like we always want to work on, but we never have time. Time always seems to be the cruncher when it comes to, getting some of these things done. So I'm going to go through about 5 things and give you guys an opportunity to, if you want to reach out to me, if there's something that I talk about that maybe you need a little bit more clarification on. I do have some tip sheets that you can, I'll send you once we're done with this presentation. You can reach out to me directly if you have any more questions. But like Kim mentioned, I'm Dana Johnson. I've been a certified Dentrix trainer for over 13 years. I've been in dentistry, 25 years now. I've worked in 2 dental practices. And so I know exactly what you all are going through every day. I know that you have workflow, and I know what goes on in the practice. I've been a treatment coordinator, insurance coordinator, office manager, you name it. I've pretty much done anything except clinical. I can hold down a crown if you want to floss the contacts, or if you want me to clean up a room, or if you want me to do perio charting, I could certainly do that. But always been in the front office. It's where my experience has always been, and so I've presented at many of the ADOM annual meetings, and looking forward to being there in September of this year. So very excited about that. So what are we going to go through today? So I thought, okay, database and clutter cleanup. And so what we're going to talk about today in this presentation is how to clean up our database, and also maybe some of the clutter that is around your desk. Maybe if you have some paper files that you want to kind of clean up. I'm going to certainly go through a lot of that today. So what's number 1? Number 1, duplicate insurance plans. Oh my gosh, this is a big one. This happens in every practice. So if you're wondering if having thousands of dental plans in your software is normal, it is normal to have, hundreds of plans, because we know insurance companies these days are offering hundreds of plans to the employers. So it's not uncommon to have hundreds of plans in your software, but you don't want to have duplicates. And so I'm going to show you kind of how to clean up those duplicates, how to get reports and find out, who's on these plans, who's not on these plans. I'll show you as soon as I switch over to my Dentrix software. I'll show you how to get those reports. Payment allocations and ledger cleanup. Oh my gosh, this is always a big one, and a lot of offices don't really understand how this happens. So I'll show you not only how it happens, but kind of what it looks like in your software when we start to clean it up. Now with Dentrix version 7.3, there is a new and better way that you can now clean up your ledgers. So I'm going to show you the old way for everyone that's on version up to 7.3. And then if you're on 7.3, then I'll show you the new version. So I'm going to show you two different options for your ledger cleanup and payment allocations. And then cleaning up old treatment plans. This office I was online with just last week, they decided that they wanted to go through treatment plans that were at least 2 years old, so that we could, either reject those treatment plans or maybe reach out to the patient and see if they're still looking at doing those. But I'll show you how to go through how to get a report of old treatment plans, and then you can decide as a team if you're going to just reject those treatment plans, get them out of your system, or kind of what you're going to do with those old treatment. Inactivating old providers and old team members, not age old, but if they're not working in your practice anymore. So you have these providers that they've moved on. You have a hygienist that's left 5 years ago and her name is still in the list. Or you have team members that have left the practice. And I'm going to show you how to inactivate those providers and team members. And then finally, convert your old paper Rolodex into eDex. And most offices have no clue, no idea what eDex is. And so I'll show you what eDex is. It's been around for a long time, and nobody really knows what it is. And the funny thing is, I was with the practice last week, and one of the gals that was online with us, she's like, "What's a Rolodex?" And I really dated myself when I said Rolodex, and so hopefully you all know what a Rolodex is. The paper cards, that we store all of our contacts, our janitor, our electrician, the cleanup crew, the pharmacies, all those contacts that we have kind of this central place. But if it's sitting on your front desk, then nobody else in the office has access to it. So I'm going to show you how to get all those contacts into your Dentrix software. So that's what we're going to go through. I'm going to now switch over into my Dentrix software because I want to show you things live. I want to show you what it actually looks like in your Dentrix software. So hopefully this switches over perfectly. There we go. Great. Okay. So let's first start with, now just so you all know, I'm on version 7.3. So if you are following along in your software, then if things look a little different, it may just be that you're on a different version than I am. Every office that I work with seems to be on a different version. So it really just depends on where you're at. I'm working on 7.3, which came out a few months ago. So let's first looking at your duplicate insurance plans, because this seems to be a project that everybody wants to tackle and just doesn't always have time. So first, I'm going to show you how to run a list. If you want to see who's all on the plans, you can go to the office manager, and under reports, under the reference tab, you could run an insurance carrier list, and then you could look at all the patients that are on a particular group of plans, where you could say, okay, I want to see everybody that's on my Delta dental plans. You could search by carrier. This is where another thing I'm going to throw out to you is it's always really important that you are spelling your dental plans the same way. And so, for example, Delta Dental of Washington. I'm originally from Washington State, and Delta Dental of Washington is also called Washington Dental Service, or WDS. And so it could potentially have 3 different names. Now, my recommendation would be to name it Delta Dental of Washington, So then when you are searching through your software, all your Delta dental plans are grouped together. So it's easier for you to generate a list. For example, another example is Delta Dental of Oregon is also called Oregon Dental Service, or ODS. So it's just a really good idea to name all your plans the same so that then you can generate better lists. So that's one tip. Now, if I was to just do all, I don't have as many plans in my software. I'm on a tutor database, so this is not a live dental practice, and so I have limited data in my software than you do. And so if you looked at that list, then you'd be able to see what patients are on which plans. So you'll see here under this Aetna plan here, here's the group number. And then you can see there's 11 patients on this plan. And then here's a list of the subscriber and then the patients. And so you can, this is a great way that you can see, okay, which patients are on each plan. Are there any empty plans? You know, any plans in here that don't have any patients? So you can see here, I've got a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan here, and there's 0 patients attached to that plan. So that might be one that you go in and maybe you purge that one. So that's a way you can get a list of patients. And the reason that's important is because when we actually go to start actually cleaning up our duplicate dental plans, we're going to go here into our insurance maintenance. And this is where you will search for your duplicates. And when you pull up a list, it's going to alphabetize the list. And what I would recommend is if you tap on the top of this column here, the group number column, because for the most part, if you have a duplicate plan, more than likely the group number is going to be the same. If you have, you could also, you know, search by the group plan name if you wanted to see if you also have any duplicates. So the easiest thing to do is when you tap on the top of one of these columns. So, you know, watch what happens when I tap on the group number. So when I tap on the group number, then it resorts all the plans by group number. And the reason that might be really helpful is then it will group all the numbers together. So see here, you can see I have a duplicate, group number 12110, 12110. So there's a duplicate. And then if I scroll down, I'll see another duplicate here. Now, these two plans are not named exactly the same. One says Columbia and one says Columbia Industries. And then the employer says Columbia Industries, but the group number is the same. So I would assume that those two plans are exactly the same. They could be a duplicate. Now, it may take you just a little bit of research just to make sure that they don't have a different maximum or they don't have different coverage percentages. But if they do have different coverage percentages, you know, you may want to give it a slightly different group plan name so you do know that those are two different plans. But if you truly have two duplicates, so you can join the plans together and you can purge the plans, okay? So we have join plans right here. So what join plans does is it will take all the patients from one plan and move them into the other plan. So what that does is it will then empty out one of the plans. So you need to kind of decide first off, which plan do I want to keep and which plan do I want to stop using? And that's where that list may come into play. You know, maybe you want to go back to that insurance carrier list and do a list of this Equicore Cigna through Equicore Cigna and see okay, how many patients are on this plan and how many patients are on this plan. And that may give you a better idea of, okay, which one should I purge or which one should I stop using? Of course, you probably want to stop using the one with the least amount of patients. And when you join them, this is one process in Dentrix that does require, everyone does need to be out of Dentrix in order for you to do that. So I'm going to close my appointment book there. So if I'm going to join these plans, here's my recommendation before we even get to the purge process, is if you have used both of these plans in the past. So let's say you have created claims, you've sent claims, you've been paid by both of these insurance plans on patients' history in their ledger. Now, if I purge one of them and you go to look in the ledger and you wanted to see like an old claim from maybe a couple of years ago, and you open up that old claim, it will say payer not found or insurance plan not found. So if you purge it out of your system and you open up an old claim that's already been paid and you've purged that insurance plan, it will say insurance plan not found. And so in the past, when I was working at a practice, I didn't like that. I wanted to be able to see who was that plan, who was that insurance company that paid on that claim. Now, if seeing insurance plan not found is no big deal to you, then purge away, purge as much as you want. For me, and you can take my advice or not, for me, I really did want to see who paid on that claim. I really didn't like seeing insurance plan not found. So what I started to do in my own practice, and what I also shared with many of my other teams, so that I give you a choice, this is your choice, is I would pick the one that I'm going to stop using. So I'm going to pick this Noble Drilling, this first one, and I'm just going to edit it a little bit. And what I started to do is I started to just put a bunch of Z's in the front of the carrier name. And what that does is it just pushes it to the bottom of the list. But what it does is that if you push it to the bottom of the list, then you can still see in the old insurance claim, oh, this was Equicor Cigna, but I know with the Z's in front of it, I'm not using that plan anymore. So there must be another one. There must have been a duplicate. And so you can see when you sort the group number column, then you still see, okay, these are the two duplicates that I'm getting rid of. And now I'm going to join those plans together. Okay. So when you're joining plans together, remember, all it does is it moves all the patients from one plan into another plan and empties out that plan. So what you're going to do here is, if you go plan to plan, then the source plan is which one do you want to get rid of? Okay, so my source plan is the one I'm getting rid of, this one. And the destination plan is what's the good one, what's the one I'm keeping, and that's this one. Okay. So then what it will do is it's going to move all the patients that are in this old one, the bad one, into the good one. And then I'm going to join, and it's going to move all subscribers and patients into the destination. And then they've been successfully joined together. Okay. So now this one is totally empty. There's no patients in it. I'm going to leave it there alone because Now, if I'm looking at a normal carrier list, then all it does is push, the Z's down to the bottom. And then here's my normal, here's my good one. Here's my good one. And then it's just pushed the bad one down to the bottom. Okay. Now you could purge. If you want to purge, then you're going to click on the purge button and you're going to find plans in here that do not have any patients assigned to them at all. Now, it's possible that you could still have open claims with some of these plans, even though you have removed the patients from the plan. So here's my Cigna, my EquiCore Cigna with the Z's in front of it that I know is a duplicate. I know it's already been emptied out. I could purge that. So I could hit delete and it will delete that selected plan. Oh, see, I got this message. There's an outstanding claim with that plan. Now, even though the patient, Lawrence, is not associated with that plan anymore, there's still an open insurance claim. So that's why it's giving me that message. And that's kind of another reason why I really don't like purging, is because you will get that message sometimes. Now let's see if this one. Yeah, see that one, there was no open claim. So it'll let you purge a plan if it's disassociated with the patient and also there's no open insurance claims. Okay, good. All right, that's the best way to clean up your duplicate insurance plans. So that's number one. Number two is another process that does also require everybody to be out of Dentrix. So, you would have to coordinate this with your other team members. But if you want to inactivate some of your providers, that's all done in the practice resource setup. So if you have providers that are no longer part of your practice, then you can purge them. So if I have this orthodontist, Oscar, that does not work in our practice anymore, I can inactivate that provider. And you do always have to give the provider a replacement provider. Now, whenever you're inactivating a provider, it does not change history at all. So it doesn't affect the ledger history. It doesn't affect any past treatment plans that's been set complete. It doesn't affect anything like that. Only things in the future. So if there was appointments scheduled with Oscar, if there was any open treatment plans, then those types of things, primary provider, if he's a primary provider for any patients, that would flip over to your replacement provider. So if Oscar is an orthodontist and I have hired a new orthodontist that is coming in, then you could replace Oscar with that new orthodontist who's in the list. If you have not replaced Oscar with another orthodontist, I would recommend just replacing Oscar with your primary doctor. So whoever maybe is the owner of the practice, the main doctor in the practice, then just inactivate Oscar and replace Oscar with the main doctor in the practice. And then you'll notice it goes and runs through some process. All it does is it looks for any future records that need to be flipped over. Like I said, appointments, treatment plans, if there's an appointment on the unscheduled list, things like that. So it's super easy to inactivate providers. However, everybody does have to be out of Dentrix in order for that to happen. All right. Same process, I should have just said that, same process with team members. So if you have a list of team members in your list here and you want to inactivate a team member, same thing. If you have replaced the team member with a new team member, then you can inactivate them, select the new team member. If they've just left and you haven't replaced them with anybody, then I would just replace them maybe with the office manager or another person. The only thing I can think of with team members would be if there's any, if you're using the office journal for reminders, that would get switched over. Any staff members that have been assigned to an appointment, future appointment, that would get flipped over, things like that. Okay, all right. Number 3 I'm going to go through is finding old treatment plans. So I recommend using the treatment manager. The treatment manager is my favorite report in Dentrix. Many of you that know me know that I like to call this report mining for gold, because I think it is the best report for finding unscheduled treatment to help fill your doctor's schedule. And, as soon as we are, back to work and our offices are humming along again, you may be wanting to work this report quite a bit to get your doctor's schedule full of treatment again. So the treatment manager is, you can find it here on the toolbar of the appointment book. It's right here. It looks like a green chair with a $sign on it. And if you don't want like the icons on the toolbar, you can go here to options and go to treatment manager. So the treatment manager is going to look for patients who have unscheduled treatment. And when I talk about like looking for something to clean up, you probably have a lot of treatment in here that's old. Like it's been sitting in the patient's treatment plan for years. And so you may want to have a conversation with your doctor to find out, okay, what is my, what can I do here as far as cleaning this up? Maybe find out from your doctor, what kind of authority do I have for rejecting cases, things like that. So, I don't think it's a bad thing to reject treatment. You never want to delete anything out of the treatment plan, because you need to have that trail, that paper trail per se, that digital paper trail of patient treatment. So you never want to delete anything out of the treatment plan. But I think it's okay if you have an agreement with your doctor that it's okay to reject it. So just give yourself like a time frame. And I kind of think if the treatment plan is more than 2 years old, then I think it's pretty safe to reject it. But that's totally an agreement between you and your doctor. And so when you're pulling up this treatment manager, there's about maybe 2 things on here that you really want to search for. Right here, make sure you're only selecting patients, so you're not looking for inactive patients or non-patients. And then you could filter it by a specific provider if you wanted to. So, if you have multiple doctors in your practice and maybe one team member is working with DDS1 and another team member is working off DDS2, you could filter it by provider. Now that is searching for their primary provider, and that is the provider 1 on the family file. It is not looking for the treatment planned provider. So just remember that. And then here's where I would filter my report. This is where you want to search for old treatment. So this is going to search for the date that the procedure was added to the treatment plan. It does not look at the case date. It looks at the procedure date. So I'll show you what that looks like here as soon as I generate that report. So now my database is not, like I said, it's not a live dental office. So, my dates are kind of weird. So I'm just going to search back to 1900. So I get a pretty big list. Now, with your practice, maybe you want to search back to, the beginning of time if you want to search back to 2000 or 1900. But then in the to date, maybe you just want to go to like 12/31/2017, which is about, treatment plans that are about 2 years old. They would be about 2 years and 3 months old at this point, now that we're at the end of March. So if you go through 12/31/2017, those treatment plans are at least a couple years old. So I'm going to just give a bigger date range in my system just because I don't have as much data as you. So I'm going to do a date range like that, and I'm going to click OK. It's going to generate me a list. Now, when you look at this list, what I would recommend is that you could start searching. You could use this column right here. Okay. And so what this column shows you is the date something was added to their treatment plan. So if I tap on the top of that column, because these columns are all resortable, you can resort them, then you'll notice that, the first person on my list here, Adrian, the last time something was added to his treatment plan was in March of 2017. So that treatment plan is now 3 years old. And Adrian is also not scheduled for an appointment. So you can see in this next appointment column here, Adrian is not scheduled for an appointment also. And so, he may actually be inactive. I don't know. I mean, he's not scheduled. He hasn't had anything added to his treatment plan since 2017. So if I now want to see what that is, then I can just go over here to the patient chart, and I can look and see what's on his treatment plan. And I can decide then, am I going to just reject that treatment? And according to whatever my doctor said, if my doctor says, yes, you have my authorization, you can reject treatment. So what I was saying is it looks at this date for the treatment plan date. So you can see this, and this root canal was added to this patient's treatment on March 20th, 2017, even though the case date says March 29th, 2020. So it's looking at the date the procedure was added to the treatment plan, not the date of the case. So I hope that makes sense to you. So in this situation, I think that what I would do is I would go up here and I would reject that treatment. And the comment might be, treatment cleanup. Treatment cleanup. And it's going to date it for you. So it's just going to make a comment, treatment cleanup. And so then it's going to reject that case. But you'll also see that it still shows up in the patient's treatment plan, so you can still see that it was there at one point. You've just rejected it. So that's the easy way to go through your patient's treatment. So here's Mary Brown. Last time something was added to her treatment plan was in October 19th of 2017. She's not scheduled for anything. I could go over and look at her patient chart, and she's got treatment that was, her treatment was already rejected. So what does she have in her treatment? Mary Brown. Maybe my tutor database. It shouldn't show if the treatment has already been rejected. So it could be something in my tutor database that's not showing this properly, but because it's showing that the case was already rejected. Maybe something was added there after the fact. But so this is a good way to go through. Now this patient, Brent Crosby, he is scheduled on March 31st, and he also has some old treatment. So maybe I want to go to his appointment and maybe put a note on his appointment. And maybe I want to put a note here that says eval old treatment. And maybe just make a note there to remind yourself that maybe we need to take a look at that, because maybe somebody hasn't, maybe it's either old or maybe it's really shouldn't be in the treatment plan. So definitely use that treatment manager, filter it, resort it by the last treatment plan date, and then start sorting through some of that old treatment. Now, of course, in your system, your list is going to be much longer than mine. So this is a great downtime project for you and your team. Okay. Fourth thing we're going to look at is ledger cleanup. I know, everybody's favorite, right? So let me tell you a little bit about what that means. And so many of you know that you see patients where the family might have a zero balance, and one family member might have a balance and one family member might have a credit. Also, for many of you that use the provider AR totals report, you may have on here, you might have on your provider AR totals report, you might have a lot of inactive providers that still have balances. And I know I don't have any on my list here, but what you may find on your report is you may have a list in here, you may have inactive providers that are still showing up on your provider AR totals report and on your day sheet that shows that you have inactive providers that still have accounts receivable. This also happens a lot with conversions. So if you have recently converted from another software to Dentrix, you may find this a lot, just depending on how you applied payments in your old software. So this is what I'm talking about, cleaning up these inactive provider balances that have gotten askew over time. And how that happens is, over time with team turnover, you may have different team members that apply payments differently. Or it could be that maybe you have changed the default of your practice and how you apply payments. So I'm going to show you first kind of the ground root level, like the setup process for how this happens. So your ledger allocation, your payment allocation on your ledger is determined by how you have it set up here in the default. Okay, so this is the default payment allocation. And so in your system, if you have it set up to pay your patient's primary provider, what that means is if you apply a payment on the patient ledger, it is going to give that payment to the patient's primary provider. So for example, if the patient comes in for a hygiene visit and your hygienist treats the patient and their procedures are totaling $200, and you apply the payment to the patient ledger, it's going to apply the $200 to the patient's primary provider, which may be DDS1, and then it leaves that hygienist still with an accounts receivable. So that happens frequently. So if in the past you have always applied payments to the primary provider, but now you want to split by provider, now it's going to try and go back in history and try and pay off now that hygienist accounts receivable, even though you didn't do it like that in the past, okay? Then you also can apply payments to the current patient or the family. Now, if in your system, if you're looking at your system right now and your payment allocation says that it's going to apply the payment to the family account, what that means is it's going to apply the entire payment to the guarantor. So if you have a family of 4 that comes in today and three kids and mom all come in for their checkups and cleanings, and you apply a payment of $800 for the family that just came in, and you have it set up to family account, it is going to apply the entire $800 to the head of household, the guarantor. It does not apply any payment to the kids or mom. Okay, so in that situation, now your guarantor has a credit and the mom and 3 kids still have balances on their ledger. Okay, following me? Now, if you click on current patient, it's going to apply the entire payment to whatever patient ledger you have open at the time. If you click on split by family, then it's going to take that $800 payment and it's going to disperse it amongst all family members. Okay, so those are your options. Then you've got your split method. Okay, now if you are set up with first in, first out, it's always going to apply the payment to the oldest balance first. If you have it set up for guarantor estimate, it's going to look at the insurance estimate for today's procedures and apply the payment to that first, and then it will flip to first in, first out. Those are the only 2 that I would recommend using as your default payment allocation. Percentage and equal, I wouldn't even consider it. Okay, so that's just kind of a little tutorial on the basic setup of payment allocation and how that could be affecting your ledger allocations and your ledger balances. Okay, so it all stems from there. Now, in your ledger, in your patient ledgers, when you are applying a payment to a patient, it will always look at that default allocation first when it's applying a payment. So if I'm applying a payment here, it's always going to use that default that I just showed you right here. Here's what I have defaulted in my payment allocation default on my office manager. It's always going to try and use that first when applying a payment. Now, what could happen is you could have a rogue D member. You could have somebody that overrides the default, and that's another way that your ledgers could get messed up. So, for example, if I'm going to make a $500 payment here, I could say, you know, I'm not going to let it split. I'm going to apply it to my DDS3. Now, no reason why someone would do that, but it's very possible that that could happen in your practice, and because I see it happen a lot. Now that you kind of get the gist of where I'm coming from, you know that some of your ledgers are messed up and that your ledger balances are not always accurate. So there's 2 ways that your ledgers can get cleaned up. So if you have some downtime right now and you want to tackle this project, if you were on Dentrix, a version prior to G7.3, then I'm going to show you the old way. Okay, so this is the way you'd have to do it. right now. So from your office manager, the first thing you need to do is run a provider credits report, okay? So from the office manager here in the aging report, you're going to run a provider credits report. And this report may be really long, okay? Now, in my system, it's only a page. In your system, it may be 200 pages, okay? And so you'll notice here, this shows you any providers where the payments have been allocated incorrectly, okay? So we're gonna look at this family. Just for an example, we're going to look at this Edwards family here because the family has a 0 balance, but the allocations have not been correctly done on the family. So I'm going to go look up the Edwards family. And so you can see here, John Edwards is the guarantor, head of household. So someone in the office applied the payment to the head of household. So he has a credit balance of 416. And then you'll see that Johnny Jr. has a balance of 281. And Kimberly has a balance of 134.55. So in this situation, the first thing I have to do is fix the patient ledgers, okay? So the first thing I have to do is I have to do a couple of adjustments. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a credit adjustment because I have to lower Kimberly's account balance. And I'm going to do a balance transfer of 134.55. It's a transfer balance, okay? Whenever you're moving money from one patient to another, or you're moving payments of balances from one provider to another, you always want to use the same adjustment types, transfer balance credit or transfer balance charge, so that those always equal each other out. Okay, so now she has a 0 balance. And then Johnny Jr., I'm going to do an adjustment of 281.45, transfer balance credit. Now he has a 0 balance. And then I'm going to go to John, the guarantor, and I have to do a adjustment. And it's going to be 416, transfer balance. All right, lots of steps, okay? Now the last piece that I have to do is now I have to fix all the provider allocations. So I'm going to go up to transaction, allocate credit balance. And now I have to fix the ledger balances based on the allocations to the providers. So here's one. I'm going to fix that one. Okay, to post that one. And then my Johnny, I think that one was okay. All right. Okay, so that's how you do it. That's the old way. And if you need a tip sheet on that, I do have a tip sheet on that. You can email me directly. Now, if you are using G7.3 or there's not one higher, if you're on G7.3, there's now a provider credit balance manager. So what we're going to do here is it makes it so much easier because it does everything in one fell swoop. So hopefully you're up to 7.3. You can go to the Credit Balance Manager and see how here's a list. This would be the same list as this report, okay? It shows you exactly the same things, only the old ways you have to work off of this kind of printed report and go to each ledger individually and fix it with all those steps. This way it gives you the same list, but all you have to do is highlight the name, click on the allocate, and fix it for each patient. It brings up that same screen, but it fixes it all in one fell swoop. And then it drops off the list. So it makes it a lot easier if you are up to 7.3, because it does everything in one step. Okay, so that is cleaning up your ledgers. And if you're on a version prior to 7.3, I do still have a tip sheet for that old way. If you want to email me directly, dana@navoni.com, I can certainly shoot you over that tip sheet. Okay, last and final thing I'm going to show you is eDex. And eDex doesn't work in my tutor database, so I do have to switch over to my real Dentrix software so I can show you that. And so eDex is this little icon, and many of you might not even know it's there, or you're like, what is that? I've never even heard of eDex before. Well, eDex has been around for a long time, and but what it does is it is an electronic Rolodex, and it's a place where you can store all of your contacts, your pharmacies, your team members, and a lot of offices love this eDex, and a lot of offices have never heard about it. So you'll notice here you've got different categories. So you can have, you know, pharmacies, you can have your staff, your pharmacies, any non-patients, you know, your own contacts. It's just a really great place to find contacts. It's super cool, super easy. You can filter it, you know, if you just want to see, you know, just show me my contacts and the office contacts and my pharmacies and my staff. You know, I don't need to see all the patients. I just want to see like my list of people. If you want to add a contact, you can click on add. And then, you know, maybe you're going to put it in your office contacts. Maybe this is your accountant. Maybe it's Susie Smith, and she's our accountant. And her email address is, you know, Susie at, you know, cpa.com or something. And her address, her phone number. And I want to save Susie in my contact list. So, you know, it's just a really nice way. Now everybody has accessibility to the office contacts, whether it's your pharmacies or whether it's your other team members, employers, things like that. So it's just kind of a really great electronic Rolodex system. So that's eDex. It's just kind of a great fun tool if you haven't converted over that paper contact list, or maybe you're using a Google Doc in a Word document where you want to maybe have it in your Dentrix software where it's easily accessible to the rest of your team members, because you know nobody uses the Google Doc. Maybe that's a great way to do that. So that is my list for you for while you have some downtime. This is the list that we went through today: duplicate insurance plans, payment allocations and ledger cleanup, cleaning up your old treatment, inactivating old providers and team members, and converting a paper Rolodex into the Dentrix software. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. You can go to my contact page on Navoni. You can email me, Dana, D-A-Y-N-A, @navoni.com. You can call me, 425-238-3699 if you have a question. And I just really appreciate ADOM giving me the opportunity to give you some suggestions while we have some downtime right now. If you're working from home, these are definitely 5 things that you could do while you're working from home. So hopefully everybody's staying safe, healthy. I'll see you at the ADOM annual meeting, and maybe see you at a next event. So take care, and see you soon. Thanks.